What's up, guys? Adam Green here with No More News. Thank you all for joining me today, Monday, January 13th, 2025. Debuting some new upgrades for 2025. We've got the Blazer, the blue Blazer, and we've got the Viking sword. So your modern Viking aesthetic is what we're rolling with today. We're going to be talking about Christian Week on Joe Rogan. He had on a new astroturfed and promoted Christian apologist from Canada named Wes Huff, and Mel Gibson on the very next day to shill a whole lot of Jesus coming out of the #1 podcast in the world. We've got a ton of new clips from rabbis and Christians about the Christian problem, a bunch of good finds from See Through It All, as well as some other news. First news story, like the Grok AI, Joe Rogan, and Mel Gibson. And we're going to discuss the fires, but first, we got House passes bill to sanction the ICC for arrest warrant against Netanyahu. First order of business, even before Trump gets in, is to go after the ICC, target and sanction the ICC. Volca Spirit says the jacket adds 10 credibility points for sure. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm desperate for anything to try to get people to wake up to the Jesus deception. So if I got to put on the lab coat so people think I know what I'm talking about a little more, that's what we're going to do. Herder, Adam is a pagan. Yeah, the Viking sword. The Viking sword will make the Tradcath Crusader LARPers seethe, I'm sure. So, Mike Johnson, ultra-Zionist, Trump-endorsed, Speaker of the House, huge Israel, Netanyahu, Kufi, John Hagee shill. Just like when he first got elected as Speaker, his first order of business was to do some resolution for Israel. I'm trying to do the show and you guys just keep making me laugh in the comments here. Hold on. The music is distracting me too. We already went through it once. Need more Amalexes. Have you tried dressing as a Jewish wizard? I'll try dressing like Brother Nathaniel or Orthodox priest next. That'll be the next attempt. So, Mike Johnson, ultra-Zionist, the House passes a bill to sanction the ICC for criticizing Israel. Lindsey Graham is celebrating. It's going to go to the Senate. Mike Pompeo is celebrating. No. He says, good for Speaker Johnson to bring back legislation to sanction the ICC. It's a threat to America, our allies, and is a tool for Hamas and Iran. It should be shut down. Shut it down. So they promised that was going to come. Trump's getting in like he promised on noon, January 20th, his first order of business. He's going to crush anti-Semitism. He told Gaza they better have all the hostages back. Otherwise, it's going to be hell to pay. There have been rumors of drawing out plans to attack nuke sites in Iran. So it is next week, 7 days, a week from today, Trump is inauguration. I kind of wish I was going just to be a part of history, see all the MAGA cultists, maybe do interviews. It would be amazing. Greenblatt is in front of the Knesset, speaking at the Knesset in a foreign country. ADL CEO Greenblatt says that it's the pager attack that Mossad did on Hezbollah was quote unquote genius. And it's that type of Jewish ingenuity needed to fight anti-Semitism. He said this, is this a terrorist threat?
We've got to start doing things differently. We've got to start doing things differently.
Yeah, they're not doing enough already.
And the same goes here in Israel. This means that the problem won't be solved by yet another new Knesset task force. It won't be solved by the government just throwing money at the problem. It won't be solved by the IDF spokesperson's unit issuing updated talking points.
Dude, he lectures American Congress, and then he goes over to the Knesset and lectures Israeli Congress too?
Using TikTok. Like us in America, you need to adopt new strategies, to experiment with creative tactics, to study the results and scale.
New strategies of propaganda in censorship.
What works.
And then scale.
New strategies to
and then apply our hundreds of millions to silence all critics.
Like us in America, you need to adopt new strategies, to experiment with creative tactics, to study the results.
Experiment on shutting down the goyim.
To experiment with creative tactics, to study the results and scale what works. Maybe it's a whole new IDF unit, call it 8300.
Unit 8300. Hold on. I hadn't even watched this yet. Unit 8200 is their Talpiot Israeli tech sector, Hasbara type of internet ops. And now he's calling for a unit 8300. Wow.
8300.
Hilarious.
To study the results.
Doesn't that sound wonderful?
What works. Maybe it's a whole new IDF unit, call it 8300, to lead this fight.
Yeah.
But we need the kind of genius that manufactured Apollo gold pagers and infiltrated Hezbollah for over a decade to prepare for this battle.
You see, running covert ops and getting pagers to blowing up pagers that Hezbollah has is a genius strategy that they need to implement worldwide. Oh, my God. If it happened to them, it would be, this is terrorism and it must be condemned everywhere. They do it and it's genius. Way too much power the ADL has. Unbelievable. The chutzpah of this guy. This is the chutzpah of Greenblatt. He says that anti-Zionism is genocide. That's a quote that he says. He brags about shutting down and controlling the internet.
Fight.
He colludes with PayPal and says that they're going to ban European nationalism while he works for Jewish nationalism.
But we need the kind of genius that manufactured Apollo gold pagers and infiltrated Hezbollah for over a decade to prepare for this battle. We need the kind of courage that executed Operation Deep Layer inside Syria and destroyed Iranian missile manufacturing capabilities to undertake this mission. This is the kind of ingenuity and inventiveness that have always been a hallmark of the State of Israel, that have always been a characteristic of the Jewish people. I know we can do it.
The characteristic of the Jewish people, you mean like deception, wage war by deception, like Mossad says, like Jacob deceived his father Isaac to screw over Esau? Unbelievable. Greenblatt tells the Israeli government how important it is to, quote unquote, capture TikTok. They say, oh, it's anti-Semitic to say ADL's been targeting TikTok. Jewish groups have been going after TikTok for their pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel content. And they're about to get it done. Our Congress hell-bent on banning TikTok. It's not because propaganda from China of America. That was fine until October 7th happened and they started criticizing Israel too much.
And how Israel and its allies, you must take this deadly seriously.
You must.
Pushing extremists off Wikipedia might not seem equal to the challenge of pushing Hezbollah north of...
Pushing extremists off of Wikipedia. Remember the old clip of Naftali Bennett, former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, saying how they work with the editors of Wikipedia to keep it balanced, quote, it was, quote, balanced but Zionist in nature. So Zionist propaganda.
The Litani River. Capturing TikTok might seem less meaningful than holding on to Mount Hermon.
Capturing nice choice of words there, Greenblatt. Capturing. You want to capture like you mean like you've captured Elon, like you've captured Zuckerberg, who Rogan, by the way, is trying to resuscitate his image.
Libelous tweets certainly might seem less deadly than missiles from Yemen. But this is urgent because the next war will be decided based on how Israel and its allies perform online as much as offline.
See, online. And when I wonder, when there's hundreds of videos slandering me and lying about me to try to undermine my credibility without ever addressing anything I say, how much of that is Unit 8200 ops? All these people spreading lies and slander against me. Rabbi Nosa Fruchu. Yeah, I want to go see that new movie. I'm hearing good things about it. And I was going through the old DVD cases the other day and saw that I had that movie. My dad must have bought it. The original. I've never seen it, but they all say it looks like Greenblatt. So he wants to capture TikTok. Now, the fires, been horrendous fires in Los Angeles. Smoke has crept down south a little bit. I've kind of seen some different color sunsets over the ocean, but haven't had the crazy dryness and intense winds like up in LA. No fires around me as of yet, but they happen almost every year somewhere in California. And how prophetic. Trump told California, quote unquote, quote, "You're going to lose your forest," is what Trump said when he was president. Look at this prescient prediction he made.
And billions. Here we are with thousands of acres and billions of dollars every year. It's the same thing.
He loves his billions and billions. He always says it. Billions and billions.
Here we are with thousands of acres and billions of dollars every year. It's the same thing every year. And they don't want to clean up their forests because they have environmental problems in cleaning it up. It should be the opposite, because you're going to lose your forests. You're losing them.
This was his talking point. I think he even brought this up when he was on Joe Rogan. Same thing about the fires.
But it's costing our country hundreds of billions of dollars because of incompetence in California. So the people I'm speaking...
And that's been the whole narrative, the incompetence. It's almost like, my tinfoil hat on. It's like they have a plan to sabotage California so they can take it over. Blame it as incompetent and take it over. I'm seeing now Mike Johnson is saying that there's going to be conditions attached to federal aid to California, which another reason makes me think that. Trump, this being one of Trump's main talking points, a little suspicious. It doesn't take much for an arsonist in dry-ass desert Southern California that has Santa Ana winds from the deserts every year, blowing hard, dry desert wind over the all the brush.
Now, for the people of California, they don't want to see this happen. They're getting destroyed. And it's hurting our budgets. It's hurting our country. And they just better get their act together. Here we are with thousands.
Better get their act together. Well, Trump predicted it again. Another one for the Trump was right jar. How prophetic of Trump. Blight Book says, my friend RC the Realist made a song about you. He uploaded the music video to YouTube. Wow, thank you. Let me check that out. Liam Jarrett says, Blazer Adam is not to be messed with. I know, it's serious. That's true. That's true. How to break out the goods. If it's a big occasion, I'll even wear a button-up collared shirt too to really finish the look. Yo, $80 from John Garatis. Coming in clutch. $80 for 80,000 followers on Twitter. It's you, John, that gives me 70 and 60 and 50, I think. It's been you every time, right? Hadn't thought about that. I forgot that I might have had an 80 coming. Thank you so much, bro. You're doing such great work. John is legend and the best. He says, getting tired of the Jewish censorship. My album's got its visibility limited when it reached over 82,000 views. Funny thing is, my Rabbi mix on 9/11 at first got its visibility limited, and later the ban was removed. It seems that someone from Twitter's staff liked it. Or maybe they just were being fair and realized, like, this is just rabbis talking. There's an awesome Adam Green fan page on YouTube. I saw that. You know, that it's really cool that I saw that because over Christmas, I was at a family party, and there was, like, one of the cousins was there with some boyfriend, and we were talking. He asked me, like, what I did, and he was like, oh, are you on Instagram? And I'm like, nah. I should have said Conspiracy Truther on Instagram. And he's like, are you on YouTube? And I'm like, I'm banned from there. But he searched my name on YouTube, and that channel came up, and I didn't even know. But that's a great idea. I should have been saying for you guys to start YouTube. I've been saying over and over again, I need to start a YouTube channel, and I do. But that'd be a great way if you guys want to help, is get a YouTube channel and post clips. No more news clips or something, but It's hard to grow if it's not me and I'm not promoting it. I'll have to promote some of that channel. Yeah, good shout out for that. And thank you so much, John. Let's see this music video. I kind of want to watch it if it's cringe. I don't want to hate on it. Let's see. Okay, doesn't sound too bad so far.
Mama raised me to be a Christian believer, but mama also raised me a seeker.
Rap?
Never held back.
Gee, this is like cringe Christian rap.
And ugly from me, I heard it all, so I started wondering. After a long time of fighting myself, I saw a post and it said exactly what I had felt. It said Christianity was a Jewish deception by Adam Green, man, a Twitter suggestion.
Oh my God.
Watch this debate with Duvid.
What?
Christianity, I finally could do it. A lot of friends, middle fingers,
Yes.
in the hands of the ones who want to remain clueless.
This is sick. A sick edit. Oh, what? Oh, I'm gonna cry now.
My side. And one group says I'm anti-Semitic, another says that I'm a
Showing me this is sick.
Jew. I am neither, I'm just trying to reach you. I feel like Adam Green sometimes.
Is this AI or somebody saying this? Yeah, burn that cross. Burn it.
I know what it's like to be seen as the devil when in reality you're trying to help them. They say I need saved from revelations, but revelations they're in need of the saving. There's already been a few, started with the fall of Rome. It's not God, it's evil people that's destroying these homes. Human-made prophecies try to start the end times. See a foreign land is holy, brainwashed to resent mine. Books like ancestors wanted passed on to their people.
Darkening age.
Our ancestors were evil and worshiping demons and knew not what they
What?
did.
When I had carrier on.
Our books are the ones that
Make the Gentiles obedient. Oops. This is so sick. Hey, who sent this in? Throwing this on my 5.1 surround sound. Now, this is really good. Who sent this? Blight Book. The realist made a song. Okay, so this is not AI. This is Blight Book. This is a real guy saying this. It's not AI. You can check out his music page, The Realist, on YouTube. This is sick.
Feeling this, you fall for the ladder and say we should be tolerant when if it commands you kill me for this idol worship. Like Adam Green, sometimes I need for yours.
Yes. England, Euro trip to the homeland.
And one group says I'm anti-Semitic, another says that I'm a Jew. And the truth is I am neither. I'm just trying to reach you.
What?
Green sometimes. And I'm all for not letting faith have us divided. But the spread of your faith was when divisiveness started.
True.
Like Adam Green.
Yes.
I need for y'all to see my side. And one says I'm anti-Semitic, another says
Paradox of anti-Semitism.
the truth is I am neither. I'm just trying.
Yeah, Robert Price. Whoever made this must be a mythicist if they're throwing in Robert Price and Richard Carrier clips. You guys feel like me? You do, huh? You all feel like me. It should be, and how do we feel? How do we feel?
Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
You guys feel like you're taking crazy pills too? That is so sick, dude. Thank you so much. RC Realist? Dude, subbed, liked and subbed, and I'm going to share, and I'm going to mirror it and share it. That was sick. Yeah, let me know if you guys feel like Adam Green too. That is so epic. Hold on, I want to make sure I have this saved too. Save for watch later. Sometimes if I click a link, it doesn't save it. Wow, that just blindsided me. I feel like I should just wrap up the show now. I felt that too. That was like from the heart. Like, whoa. All right. So back to the fires. You see the main talking points is they're woke, they're DEI, they're incompetent, California sucks, they're Sodom and Gomorrah, they're evil, it's degenerate Hollywood, they deserve it, it's God punishing them. That's basically the talking points you're hearing after the fires happening. Here's influencer Sneeko
Prayers go out.
saying that.
I'm praying for everybody in LA because it looks like the Walking Dead out there. Hope you're safe. If one of those houses were yours, I'm really sorry. If anything happened to you, our prayers go out to you. But like the rest of us, I can't help but think, why did that happen to LA? Out of all places. Picture of the Hollywood sign burning on fire straight out.
Which is a fake photo, by the way. People were sharing that around, and it wasn't even real, unless I'm mistaken.
A hellish movie, a reflection of Sodom and Gomorrah. Makes you think maybe God is punishing this place. I'm praying for everybody in LA because it looks like the Walking Dead out there. Straight out of a hellish movie, a reflection of Sodom and Gomorrah. Makes you think maybe God is punishing this place.
Yeah, God's punishing them. He doesn't punish Israel for the 40,000 dead in Gaza. No, God is showing his power by showing up on burnt toast and having a statue cry a tear and burning LA to the ground. Yeah, that's right. The area that's basically a desert that has high fire risk every year has a fire, and it must be God. People act like there isn't wildfires in California every year. I know, exactly. It's just like a known risk every year, and then it happens. They say, God punishing him. I like that. Information No Name says, God punished Sneeko when he got his tooth knocked out at the bar. God is absent. Conspiracy Truther says, I can't take someone serious who looks forward to being martyred. Yeah, he's a Muslim, Jesus shill. In this whole network of anti-Zionists that worship the God of Zion and refuse to criticize the Jesus deception or even talk about it or debate it. But coincidentally, if it's God punishing, if the fires are God punishing the evildoers, Mel Gibson had his house burned down while he was on Joe Rogan talking about Jesus. So if that's not a sign from above, I don't know what is. He's on the biggest podcast in the world talking about how Hollywood doesn't like Jesus. The Jews hate Jesus, Jews killed Jesus meme coming from Joe Rogan. The day before he had on the Christian Apologist, the new up-and-coming Christian Apologist. So maybe it was God punishing Mel Gibson and burned his house down because he made Passion of the Christ, since God's punishing people. Watch the Collapse says, these fires as a result of diversity in America, nothing more. Get used to it. Whites coming to a town near you. Is that a joke? Because, I mean, there's just certain areas that are more prone to fires than others. Let's see. Yeah, I did. Everybody liked the video, I think. So Mel Gibson's LA mansion destroyed by fire while he was on Rogan talking about Jesus. Undoubtedly a sign from above. Mel Gibson loses his Malibu home. And his attitude was like, no big deal, no big deal. He's so positive about it. It's like, yeah, he's worth hundreds of millions and has houses all over the world. Yeah, you can chalk up some of the fires to incompetence, but like these winds and these dry winds and all of this brush is just wet, ready to burn. Can't only say it's incompetence. But he was on there. Okay, this is the video of him talking about the fires burning his place. And I'm just joking, by the way. Fires are not, if that's not clear, I'm not actually saying that his house burned down because he made Passion of the Christ. So, some low IQ, gullible Christians out there will think I'm serious. Yeah. It was Thor. Thor was so mad that you made Passion of the Christ and made all these Israel worshipers that he sent a lightning bolt and burnt your house down. Thor did it. Punished you for your Jewish promotion of a Jewish religion.
But like this morning, for example, I would be surprised if my home is still there.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. The Palisades is on fire.
Yeah.
My friend Tom Segura, his house is gone.
Yeah.
It was where he used to live. He sold it, luckily.
Yeah, I have a son. He's in the sort of volunteer fire brigade, Milo. I call him the mayor of Malibu. And he's running around. And I asked him, how's things looking there, Milo? He says, not good, Pops. He says, your neighborhood. And he sent me a video of my neighborhood, and it's in flames. It looks like an inferno. So, yeah.
Do you think this will get you out of California finally?
Yeah, maybe.
Where are you going to go?
Oh, I don't know. I got a place in Costa Rica. I love it
Ooh,
there. Yeah.
Costa Rica's nice.
But
I actually years ago went to Costa Rica. It's a beach town. I can't remember the name, Santa Teresa or something like that, where he lives. They drove us by and pointed out his house on one of these, what was that, like a paddle boarding tour. Took us by their house.
like this morning, for example, I
can't remember what Santa Teresa, is that what it's called? It doesn't matter, but yeah, his big home there. Oh, it doesn't, no big deal. His house burned down. He's got many others. He's worth hundreds of millions. Yeah, people are saying he was on drugs. He definitely was acting pretty well, but he was doing a whole lot of. He talks about Passion of the Christ 2 and the Shroud of Turin and resurrection and the Pope being controlled by Satanists and some. It really was Christian Week. That's why we called it that on Joe Rogan, between the Apologist and Mel Gibson. So here they are. This is when his house was burning down for talking about Jesus. They're talking about how Christianity is disparaged.
There's resistance, first of all, from secular Hollywood, where for whatever reason, Christianity is the one religion that you're allowed to disparage.
Yeah.
Christianity is the one religion where people, all these progressive, open-minded...
Maybe because it's also the dominant religion in our culture. Should we not be able to criticize the dominant Jewish religion?
Leftist people, they'll embrace all these different religions until it comes to Christianity. There's resistance, first of all.
Yeah, it's so counterculture on Joe Rogan, the #1 podcast, and Trump, the president, and to shill for the biggest establishment institutional religion of the last 1,700 years. It's so edgy and counterculture. The Jews hate it when you worship the God of Israel. The Jews hate it when you believe that in their covenant. See? And now we're seeing these talking points at the highest level on Joe Rogan. And have I not been saying for years that Joe Rogan is getting on the Christ is King bent? In fact, there's a thread. We're going to go through the whole thread of Rogan talking about Christianity in the past over the years. Nowadays, now that he's on the MAGA Trump shill arc, he's saying, oh, we need Jesus. We need Jesus, is what he's saying.
I'm going to try and tackle this question.
So this is a clip of him talking about the resurrection, Passion of the Christ Part 2.
The next film I'm going to try and tackle this question. That there are big realms, spiritual realms. There's good, there's evil, and they are slugging it out.
There's angels and demons, and they're everywhere. The cosmic Jewish battle between the Jewish God and the Jewish boogeyman. Come on. Christians eat this up.
Good, there's evil, and they are...
And then Christians, what do they think? Anybody that doesn't bow down to the King of the Jews is evil, an evil, satanic antichrist. Yeah, how do people... Good point, Jack Stone. How do people all not realize that all the controlled opposition influencers push Christianity and Jesus? I know. From Rogan to Jones to hired by Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, from John Hagee and all the big... There's so many hundreds of big influential Christian Zionist YouTube channels and pastors around the world all doing it.
That there are big realms, spiritual realms. There's good, there's evil, and they are slugging it out for the souls of mankind. And my question is, why are we even important?
They're fighting over our souls.
Little old flawed humanity. Why are we important in that process?
Oh, we're so flawed and
evil. The big
evil.
realms are slugging it out over us. And I think...
See, this is the mindset that first century, the developing of primitive Christianity is that there's angels and demons fighting it out in the firmament in heaven. That's what celestial Jesus, the pre-existent angel, the mythical Jesus, actually started with, tricking Satan and his demons to a sacrifice in heaven, and they didn't know who he was. Yeah, Russell Brand, that's the other big one too, right? Russell Brand.
There's bigger things at play here. And institutions that
proof
to touch.
What's your proof of any of these angels and demons having this cosmic drama, Jewish drama in this invisible realm? Like, what's with serious people on the top podcasts in the world? Yeah, I know. Dude, trust me. Chat says Matthew North. Matthew was all over Rogan, and this, like, I saw somebody tweet, it's got like 80,000 likes. They said this is the new Project Mockingbird. He's in there shilling Trump. Rogan's working got the $200 million contract from Spotify. He's at the UFC. He's been friends with Alex Jones for 20 years, in with Jones, and the intellectual dark web of Controlled Op. Working for Dana White, who's in UFC, is owned by Ari Emanuel, who is Trump's Jewish super agent in Hollywood. And now he's having on Christian Apologists and Mel Gibson to shill Jesus shit, saying we need Jesus, always keeping it kosher. It is like the new Operation Mockingbird. Matthew North was always saying how he's CIA. He's the new, him and Jones are the new controlled opposition, the mind wars. And now he's having on the who's who of Rogan promoting the shill networks. He just had Zuckerberg on and tried to rebrand him as some based MAGA guy.
Touch on the divine are necessarily going to be affected by that slugfest that's going on between good and evil.
Right. And sometimes good gives up ground.
Yeah, and maybe not on purpose.
So this story that you want to tell about good and evil, like, do you have a script, or is it just a thing in your
head? Yeah, it's called the Bible, written by the Jews. That's the script.
Story that you want to tell about good.
Yeah, it's called the script. It's the scriptures. You ever heard of it, Joe? Such a funny question.
And maybe not on purpose.
So this story that you want to tell about good and evil, like, do you have a script, or is it just a thing in your head? Like, what is it?
Yeah, it's the resurrection story, but it's not linear, because you can't.
It's not real.
Really, it's hard to understand. So it's got to be put in a framework where you answer a few other questions as well. And you have to juxtapose the event itself against everything else.
Well, he's really getting deep. You already have your script. It's called The Gospels. My Odyssey account with the 50 dono. Thank you so much, Odyssey account. You're the man. Says, may the world be green-pilled. That's the goal. That's not where I'm going. The thank you. Here we go.
That's awesome. Thanks, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, my Odyssey account. That is my goal. May the world be green-pilled to the Jesus deception.
So that it makes some kind of sense in a bigger picture, which is a hard thing to do. And it took my brother and I and a guy called Randall Wallace, plus my brother and I, took us 6-7 years to write it.
Wow.
So are you doing this with...
Hey, I don't see, guys, my book, that's why it's taken so long, okay? It takes him 6 years to write The Passion of the Christ. When he's basing it on the Bible.
Historians as well? Are you trying to make it...
Yeah, historical stuff. Well, I regard...
It's not historical stuff. No, he's not consulting with historians. Only Christian apologists. If by historians you mean lying priests, then yeah.
So are you doing this with historians as well? Are you trying to make it...
Yeah, historical stuff. Well, I regard the Gospels as history. It's verifiable history. Some people...
Verifiable history. You got to be kidding me. Dude, if Rogan's going to be platforming bullshit like that and the nonsense from the Wes Huff, the Christian apologist, have on a Jesus mythicist. Have on a critic of Christianity. Has Rogan ever had a guest on that makes the case that Jesus isn't real? Ever? Yeah, verifiable? How can you even claim it's verifiable? The Gospels are written decades after the fact by unknown authors at an unknown time, unknown place. They're uncritical, unscholarly, a lot of uns, and but he says verifiable. They're religious symbolic fiction propaganda is what the Gospels are.
Fairy tale.
I know. I could go on Rogan and smoke some weed and expose mythical Jesus, Jewish mythical Jesus. Why won't that happen?
He never existed, but he did. And there are other accounts verified.
Wait, hold on. What does he say about not existing? This is so funny.
Historians as well. You're trying to make it.
Yeah, historical stuff. Well, I regard the Gospels as history. It's verifiable history. Some people say, "Oh, it's a fairy tale." He never existed, but he did.
No. Oh, great argument. No, it's a fairy tale, and he didn't exist. There's no magical Jewish superhero that was born a virgin and turned water to wine and walked on water and raised the dead and came back from the dead that fulfilled hundreds of Jewish prophecies. It's fake. You're a script writer in Jewish Hollywood. You've gotten drunk and ranted about the Jews. You know they're all about writing scripts and they're myth makers. But no, this Jewish myth, totally historical, verifiable, unbelievable.
History. Some people say, "Oh, it's a fairy tale." He never existed, but he did. And there are other accounts.
Proof. What's the proof?
I read about it in a book.
Oh, that's what I thought.
Verifiable historical accounts outside the biblical ones that also bear this up, that yes, he did exist.
Yeah, they're based. He's talking about Josephus and Tacitus, and these are after the Gospels were written and Christianity was spreading. And they're repeating what Christians believed that they learned in the Gospels. Okay, debunked.
And the other aspect of that is that all the evangelists, the apostles who went out there, every single one of those guys died rather than deny their belief. And nobody dies for a lie.
That's not true. People die. Rogan's like, right, thinking people die for lies all the time. What, a Jew's never died, a Muslim's never died, never been martyred? Religions all have their martyrs. There's something powerful about the martyrdom story that compels people to follow things. These legends of all of the disciples being persecuted and martyred comes from much later traditions. They're not in the Bible. Christians made them up long after the fact. They're forgeries, fake history, like all the rest of it. There were no disciples. There was no earthly Jesus. Paul doesn't even write in any of his letters about an earthly Jesus and never even mentions the word disciple. There were only apostles like Paul who saw Jesus in the mystical visions and read out of the scriptures. See? But millions of people on Joe Rogan just heard the exact opposite and go and believe the nonsense that he just spewed. I mean, how much more do you guys need to realize they're using Jesus and Christianity? Oh, there's nothing they hate more. They're trying to destroy it. Here it is on your top Zionist Gatekeeper podcast. People would die for a lie. Being prosecuted, not persecuted, for trying to subvert Rome with the Judaizing religion or for not following the laws of Rome. Sure, maybe that happened. Maybe they didn't like some Jews trying to subvert and Judaize with this subversive foreign cult in Rome.
In the next film I'm going to do, I'm going to try and tackle this question.
Okay, well, now this is the same one.
About good and evil, like
it's the exist.
That's the one. You believe that was a real event?
The most faith and the most belief, yeah. Resurrection.
Yeah.
Part of what I'm doing. It's like showing nobody dies for a lie.
Yeah. Well, the resurrection is the one that is the most difficult for people to swallow.
Yes.
That's the one that requires the most faith.
The most faith and the most belief, yeah. Resurrection.
Yeah.
Who gets back up 3 days later after he gets murdered in public, who gets back up under his own power. Buddha didn't do that shit.
Right.
You know, so.
You believe that was a real event?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, I want to see Joe's response. Come on, Joe. Have on like Dr. Carrier or Richard Price or me. Or anybody to talk about how Jesus is fake and that the resurrection is not verifiable. He won't, though. He won't. Because he's a part of the Zyogrift network. Yeah, Buddha didn't do it and neither did Jesus. They're shroud maxing. Now here he is with his Shroud of Turin propaganda. Let's hear this.
And I still have that faith, but as I got older, I came to it through intellect and through reading and putting things together in accounts, and then occurrences.
How could you say nobody dies for a lie? Like, they literally, the Christians wanted to be martyrs. They would die for it. How about like the cults, like the Hail Bop cult, Heaven's Gate? They thought, they were convinced by some cult leader that a comet coming by was a spaceship, and if they committed suicide, their souls would float up and be taken away to a heaven. They died, they committed suicide, they martyred themselves for a lie. It does happen. And it's quite possible, there's crazies out there. People today, Christians today, say they know Jesus, they speak to Jesus, they walk with Jesus. They have a personal relationship with Jesus. They don't. There's no historical Jesus walking around. If Christians will do that today, they'll do that in first century. They could have schizophrenic hallucination, dreams. They could be making it up. They could be reading about this figure that they saw hidden, a hidden mystery, as Paul says, in the scriptures.
It's like in my own life, you know. I mean, just recently they verified the Shroud of Turin. Have you seen that?
No, they didn't. Dude, Christians are so lazy. If some information validates their belief, they'll go run with it. They don't fact check it. They don't have any skepticism towards it. This new study that you saw headlines about says it's proven, confirmed, the shroud is 2,000 years old. It's an unproven new method of dating that's not widely used at all in the field, that is an X-ray image of the thread unraveling. And they have to factor in all types of variables like the temperature, the humidity, the rate of fray. And what do you know? The guy that ran the study, that funded the study, has been obsessed for 20 years. His whole life's mission is trying to prove that the shroud is real. And what do you know? His new bullshit study confirmed it. Total proof, scientific. Forget about the fact that in the 80s, they took a sample of it and sent it to 3 different universities for radiocarbon dating. And they all came to the same time 500 years ago, which matches up with that it was never anywhere written about in the record until 500 years ago. And the first record of it is a Catholic priest saying it's a forgery.
And putting things together in accounts. And
the Christian cope is that they took a sample from the outside of the shroud that had been repaired, so the thread wasn't as old as the original. Okay, well, that's your stupid fault. Take a sample that's from the original and send it out again to some more universities. Oh, but the Vatican doesn't do that. The Vatican doesn't even officially declare that this is real. It's a nonsense forgery.
And then occurrences like in my own life, you know. I mean, just recently they verified the Shroud of Turin. Have you seen that?
I've been reading about it, and I know that there's some contention, there's some discussion and debate about it. But
thank you, Joe.
They used to think that it was only a couple hundred years old.
Yeah.
And now they've changed that.
No,
Yeah,
they have not done that. One guy did a study, and it won't be reproduced. They're going to poke a million holes in it.
Back then.
They also don't understand how it was made, which to me is very fascinating because it's not paint. It's not. They don't know what caused the image itself and how that technology would have even been available.
It wasn't. No.
A couple thousand years ago.
An intense light. I mean, atomic. To leave almost like a photographic imprint on a piece of cloth.
Yeah.
And
it's wild. Pull that up. Pull the Shroud of Turin.
And they just had this tucked away for 1500. There's no prophecy. Oh, thy will find the shroud and it will be proved. There's nothing like that. This is so pathetic.
Oh, yeah.
It's wild to look at because it's so interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. As if there's not very... Think about this. This is in the 1500s. For thousands of years, there's been incredibly talented artists that can do extremely lifelike, intricate, complex sculptures of all types of shit. That beautiful paintings that look as if they're real with the naked eye. So you're telling me there's artists that can do all that type of incredible art, but they can't fake a shroud? It was faked. Please. Big Tech was telling me about one of the theories they have is that somebody made a carving of a man, which they made to match. They based the Jesus off of traditional images and icons of Jesus that we don't have until hundreds of years after he lived. But that they had a carving and then they wrapped it and then they did something to the outside that left like a reverse imprint on it.
And you can see it, that it depicts a first century Hebrew male because the hairstyle was from the first century.
What?
And a Hebrew hairstyle. That he was
Hebrew hairstyle? Paul says, hold on, I got to do ChatGPT. Paul says long hair is bad. Verse. I should have said verse. What's his proof that first century Jews had hair like mine? 1 Corinthians 11 says, does not nature itself teach you that if a man wears long hair, is it a disgrace for him? But if a woman has long hair, it is her glory, for her hair is given to her for covering. So Paul, the author of most of the books of the New Testament, says long hair is a disgrace, but Jesus had long hair? Is that adding up to anybody? Is that making any sense? Does nobody see the problem with that? A Hebrew male, laugh out loud, a Jew. Yeah, he calls him Hebrew. A Jewish male, they would only have the side curls. That's funny. So you're telling me that in 1 Corinthians, Paul is going to say that Jesus is a disgrace because he had long hair? No. Shroud debunked on that basis alone. Yeah, how does he know what the Hebrew hairstyles were, by the way? Listen to this guy. He just heard some bullshit from some Catholic apologist online. Some kooky priest told him some shit, and he just believes it is gospel.
And you can see it, that it depicts a first century Hebrew male because the hairstyle was from the first century, and a Hebrew hairstyle.
Hebrew hairstyle. That should be a good account name for Twitter. Mel took lots of acid and traveled 2,000 years back. Yeah, that's probably
6 feet tall. That he was completely scourged all over his body. He was crucified.
Okay. The forger put blood marks where on the hands and feet, where on the belly where he was pierced, according to what the gospel said. Duh. Every Christian is an expert in Hebrew studies, says see through it all. So no Jews were bald. Nope. My Jesus has a comb over. Yeah, exactly. How do you like your Jesus? I like my Jesus with a Hebrew haircut and long hair. How do you like your Jesus?
I like to picture Jesus in a tuxedo T-shirt because it says, like, I want to be formal, but I'm here to party, too. Because I like to party, so I like my Jesus to party.
Speaking of shroud, since we're shroud maxing.
Yeah, the one on the left the one on the right is just like an artistic rendition.
Yeah, here we go. The one on the left is definitely what the shroud looks like. Guys, the scientists have revealed for the very first time the true face of Jesus Christ, our Lord. A blue-eyed, golden hair, Aryan Chad Jesus. Here, we'll do this one too. We can show this one while we're at it. They were sharing this around like it's proof. The shroud proves Jesus is real. It's so joke, dude. These people are such a joke. It's clown world that this is the type of stuff we're arguing about.
It's a first century Hebrew male because the hairstyle was from the first century, and a Hebrew hairstyle. That he was about 6 feet tall. That he was completely scourged all over his body. He was crucified. That's
yeah,
it there.
the one on the left is the one on the right is just like an artistic rendition.
Yeah,
That's
the
the
one.
face.
Yeah, click on that one. The face. Yeah, that's good enough. Get that
Yeah.
large. That's
Yeah.
fucking crazy.
Yeah. Scourged, beaten.
Yeah.
The wounds on the thorns, the hands.
Dude, they're showing all this as proof, as if the guy that forged this and fabricated this shroud wouldn't try to put all this stuff in.
And
6 foot tall Yid never happened. I know,
the
that's
scourging. And the hairstyle was from the 1st century. And the pollens that they found in the cloth were from that region.
Yeah.
Also, the weave was a 1st century weave that was typical. And another guy, an archaeologist who I knew who actually translated the Passion into Aramaic, told me that if you look close, you can see the image of a Tiberius coin marks on the eyes. Now, I don't know if that's real or not. I've never actually checked that, but that there's images of Tiberius on the coin.
Because they would put the coins over the eyes.
Yeah. So that
Tiberius coin marks? Has anybody ever heard of that? This is bad, I know.
but they have now
Never heard that one.
It does actually go back to that time period. For a while, they were testing pieces that had been repaired in the 13th century.
There's the code.
Right.
You know.
What is the latest on that, Jamie?
Yeah, the Vatican repaired it, and then gave the repaired section, I guess, on the outside, and had them radiocarbon date that. Yeah, talk about retarded. What a retarded cope. Yeah, what the heck is a Hebrew hairstyle? We don't know.
You see, like,
I was trying to get that. I have two different articles from within the last 6 months saying
the
opposite
Smithsonian
things. So.
Yeah, two articles saying the opposite thing, saying that it's a nonsense bunk study by a Christian propagandist that's hell bent on proving. You can't have the guy where it's his whole life mission to prove the shroud. Have a little bit of skepticism when he funds a study that says, "Oh, what do you know? This new way of dating dates it exactly when he wants it." Okay, yeah, press X to doubt, please.
Of course.
Dig into which one sounded the most accurate.
well, it's such a crazy thing to even try to verify. Like, what are you saying? You're saying that this is really the shroud that Jesus was covered in? So you're saying Jesus historically absolutely did exist, and we think that this is the shroud that covered him. That alone, people, incredulity, people's immediately their hackles raise. Like, wait a minute, and they just.
What should they not? Are you saying what do you say, hackles is raised? What does that even mean? Hey, stop raising your hackles, goy. Corn Pop the Bad Dude for 25, thanks, buddy, says, flower pollen typically lasts for a few hours to a few days when exposed to normal conditions, but can remain viable for much longer if stored properly in a cool, dry environment, sometimes lasting weeks or months. So I guess Jesus pollen has that extra oomph to last 1,700 years. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's bullshit. I'd have to look into some of those other points he made about the thread in the thread and the weave and the pollen. I've heard everything else I've seen them say about the shroud has been a lie. So if I investigated those further, I can guarantee you that's probably the case. Go back to sleep, Goyim. Jesus is in control. Trust the plan. Right.
Just that alone, people, incredulity, people's immediately their hackles raise. Like, wait a minute, and they just instead of like looking at it objectively, they almost always want to look at it from a point of view of dispute.
Hey, you skeptics aren't being objective. You're not just believing the shroud's bullshit story. What's with this objecting to that? You got your hackles, your panties in a bunch. Look at this. Look at Rogan here.
Proving it immediately. Dismissing it immediately.
But that's science, isn't it? You have to sort of, you play the devil's advocate. And that's okay. Go for it,
Thank you. Jeez. Rogan was worse than Mel on that. Yeah, it's not like we're just believing in scientism. They tested it. They sent it to several universities. They all used the normal method of dating things, radiocarbon dating, and they all said it's from the 1500s. And that's with a variable of like a couple hundred years. So no way it was first century. And I've also heard arguments that like the way that they do the shrouds and burial doesn't even match up to the imprint that would be on that. They don't do long ways up and down. They wrapped it around the head. Rogan watched porn for 2 hours after that interview. Yeah, he smoked a whole bunch of edibles and joints right before this one, before he got Jesus pilled by Mel Gibson.
Your thoughts on evolution?
Wow.
So what are your thoughts on evolution?
Wow. The Darwin thing?
Yeah.
I don't really go for it. I don't think I was some kind of like, legless thing that crawled out of the ocean. I don't think I came from that.
You didn't. You came from billions of years of just being apes, having ape ancestors. And hundreds of millions of years before that. I mean, you can see the progression from a fish to an amphibian to a reptile, similar to a small little mouse mammal, to a monkey, to an ape, to a human. You can see the progression. And he just goes, I don't think I used to be a fish, as if that's how it works. Talk about not understanding or deliberately strawmanning and misrepresenting what evolution actually says to try to argue your point. Yeah, he twitches a lot. I think he is.
I don't really go for it.
On something.
I don't think I was some kind of like, legless thing that crawled out of the ocean. I don't think I came from that. I think I was created.
Created, just like the Bible says. God just snapped his fingers and man and woman from Eve came from the rib. You believe the rib too, right, Mel? You believe he came from the dirt? Cringe Christian meme. I believe in the Jewish origin story, not scientific evolution. Like, not cool. Not as cool as you think you are. Not even close.
Evolution.
The same one. Okay. Man, I got lots of the same clip. Okay, here's I think the last one. It's
for cancer.
Dr. Mel Gibson talking about his miracle cancer cures.
I'll tell you a good story.
Okay.
I have 3 friends. All 3 of them had stage 4 cancer. All 3 of them don't have cancer right now at all. And they had some serious stuff going on.
And what did they take?
Jesus. They took some, what you've heard they've taken.
Ivermectin.
Fenbendazole.
Fenbendazole, yeah. I'm hearing that a lot.
They drank hydrochloride something or other.
Studies on that now where people have proven that
people
they've
drinking methylene blue and stuff like that.
Yeah, methylene blue, which was a fabric dye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a textile dye. And now they find out it has profound effects on your mitochondria.
Yep.
Yeah.
This stuff works, man.
There's a lot of stuff that does work, which is very strange because, again, it's profit. When you hear about things that are demonized and that turn out to be effective, you always wonder, well, what is going on here?
Like, I'm not ruling out the idea that you could have some cancer fighting drugs out there, but Mel Gibson explaining it, if you just I feel like it's some crackhead on the street telling me to drink turpentine or something. The way Mel Gibson just maybe if he had a suit and a blaze, maybe if he had a lab coat on, he would be more believable. I would be more likely to take some of the drugs he's showing.
Or they failed us so that things that do cure you are not promoted because they're not profitable.
Yeah, it's true. Rumble, all of alternative media has lots of alternative health cures and vitamins and drugs and in theories, go completely vegan, drink all juice, celery juice, fast for 40 days. There's so many miracle cures shilled out there by charlatans. It looks like Mel's lying and he's just having a hard time doing it. No, I think he really believes all this stuff. He's like just your typical boomer Christian at this point. Now, here's the guy, the other apologist that Rogan had on this week. And again, he'll platform Christian apologists and people to Jordan Peterson to shill Jesus and Mel Gibson. And who was the other guy we saw? I clipped it. Joe Rogan was talking to Kid Rock about Jesus. He's like, what's the proof? And he's just like, my faith. Or he said something even more ridiculous. But Wes Huff, he's this Canadian. He had the debate with Billy Carson. I just saw him on Patrick Bet David's podcast. He's blown up from... Okay. So I'm banned 5 channels from YouTube. I'm banned from almost everywhere. But this guy, the Christian apologist, does a debate with some low-hanging fruit disinfo Billy Carson. And his YouTube channel goes from 15,000 to 300,000 in 2 weeks or a month, one or the other. 15,000 to 300,000 subs. And that was before he went on Joe Rogan and got the Christian apologists are going crazy. Rogan's retweeting all of it. You know who else denies evolution? Jews, right? So say Jesus is fake and Jewish and never existed, slandered, attacked, blackballed, no big interviews anywhere. Be a Christian apologist and Rogan explode, never censored. And do you guys not get it yet? So they were talking resurrection, and he said so much stuff that's also wrong. Christian apologist was on Joe Rogan defending the faith. He's a little manlet too, like Rogan. Facts about the resurrection the skeptics cannot overcome.
How do you fact check someone coming back from the dead?
Well, how do
you fact check someone coming back from the dead?
Well,
how many people saw his body, right?
Well, Paul says that 400 people saw him all at once.
No. Rogan hypes him up like, oh, you're not just like an average researcher. You're like a real scholar. You know everything. Billy Carson didn't know something. If you really know something, you wake up at 5 a.m. and I ask you and you know it like that. And he says it's 400 when it's really 500. Paul says Jesus appeared to James, Peter, the 12, and then 500, not 400. Rogan asks, what's any proof that he resurrected? Who saw him? He says, he cites Paul claiming 500 people saw it. A story of Paul claiming 500 people saw something. And guess what? That's only one time in Paul's letters. None of the gospel stories mention anything about an appearance to 500 because it didn't happen. Even according to Christianity, it didn't happen. Otherwise, something that important and all of the gospel authors forgot to mention Jesus appearing to 500 people at once, the main proof of a resurrection, because without that, it's just he appeared to a couple of his cultish Jewish followers. And we're just all supposed to take their word for it because they would never lie to subvert Rome and get all the Goy to worship there, to theologically conquer the Goyim.
So how do you fact check someone coming back from the dead?
Well,
how many people saw his body, right?
Well, Paul says that 400 people saw him all at once.
Did he say he talked to anybody that saw him? No. Was he there when the 400 people saw them? No. Most likely, Paul didn't even write that. And the 500 is Pentecostus, so it could have been, could have had another meaning. That's why it wasn't included in the Gospels. Only in Paul's letter that was written before the Gospels, but they don't include it. So it's hearsay. Paul claiming that 500 people saw something. That's your proof.
How many people saw his body, right?
Well, Paul says that 400 people saw him all at once.
400 people saw the crucifixion?
No, saw the resurrected Jesus. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 15, Paul says that Jesus appeared to the disciples, and then he appeared to 400 people all at once. I mean, if we read the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of Luke and Acts, so same author wrote these both documents, he says that Jesus was walking around teaching them for 40 days after he was resurrected from the dead. And
okay, how do we know that's true? Some Jews said something. How do we know it's true and they're not making it up? And notice, this is only an appearance of Jesus after the resurrection. The earliest layers of the New Testament never place Jesus anywhere on earth. They don't describe a earthly preacher with a ministry doing miracles and speaking in parables. They only see him Oh, yeah, by the way, that's only, hold on. The verse is 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8. And this is a post-resurrection appearance. 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8. Look at what it says, too. This is evidence from top Christian apologists on Joe Rogan, guys. Paul says, "For what I received, I passed on to you as first importance." When he says received, that means he received it from the Lord, from revelation, not from any man. He says adamantly, he did not learn this from any man. He received it from his mystical experience that he describes as being caught up into the third heaven. So what he received, he passed on to you as first important. That Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures. As in, the scriptures say this happened. He's learning his source of Christ dying for sins is from the scriptures, from his reading of Daniel, Isaiah, and Zechariah and Wisdom of Solomon. That he was buried and that he was raised on the third day according to the scriptures. So the third day is prophecy too. Jonah 3 days in the whale. And also in Daniel 7, it talks about a day, and a day and a half, which would be 3 days. After that, he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the same time, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep, meaning they don't believe anymore, or they're dead. Then he appeared to James, then to all of the apostles, and last of all, he appeared to me also. So appearing, they're not talking about Jesus on earth. They're talking about post-resurrection appearances. That's the only time they place Jesus. See what I'm saying? And he's acting like this is good evidence for Jesus. Rogan's asking for proof, and this is the goy slop that he's shoveling to him and to the millions of people that saw this.
So these are written within a time period when you have people who would have seen Jesus' ministry, who were there, say at something like the feeding of the 5,000, who could have been able to verify or debunk some of these things that are...
You can't debunk. There's nobody debunking something that never happened. There's nobody there to debunk it if they weren't there and it never happened. And they didn't verify. There's no scripture that says, and they went to the person who fed the 5,000 and they confirmed that the fish was good and the water turned to wine. No. This is such a joke, what we're dealing with here.
Jesus' ministry, who were there, say at something like the feeding of the 5,000, who could have been able to verify or
they could have been able to verify it, but there was no verification.
Debunk some of these things that are being said. And you go from a bunch of scared guys who, because Jesus wasn't the only messianic figure who arose and claimed to be the Messiah.
Right.
There were a number of individuals both prior to and after Jesus, but they die and the movement dies with them.
Do you think it's possible?
And the reason that in first century Judea there were so many messianic movements and messianic figures that had messianic ambitions was because of the Daniel timetable. The 70 weeks in Daniel, at that time, they were calculating to be about 30 AD. What a coincidence that they invent the Jesus Messiah figure, have his name be Yeshua Saves, and place him in the exact time to fulfill the Daniel timetable, and the new Gospels reference and cite the Daniel timetable. Watch the Collapse for 5 says, are you going to do a pre-order system for the book? I'd love to reserve one. Just got Keith Wood's book today. Excuse me. Let's see this retard go up on a panel with you and Neil. Yeah. Neil from Gnostic Informant and Derek from Myth Vision did a video before he was on Rogan debunking some of his stuff. Wes Huff put out a video where he was saying Neil was wrong about all this stuff when Neil was completely right about it. And he was wrong and he had to retract and delete his video. And Wes Huff put out a video like he's not debating anybody unless you're Joe Rogan or CNN or whatever. He's not going to do a debate. So he's not doing any debates. He's just going to go on Rogan put out his Christian apologetics propaganda. But yeah, I would like to see them debate. Corn Pop the Bad Dude says, I'm on my 4th YouTube channel. I was thinking about getting banned a few more times intentionally and applying for a Guinness World Record for the most banned YouTube channel. You're on your 5th, so go ahead and take up the idea if you want. Yeah, it's hard to try to put all the time in to rebuild a channel knowing that they'll take it away from you at any time. Odin for 20 says, keep on exposing the trap for what they call cattle. Who needs drugs when one is a Bible junkie? They possess all the same behaviors with extra kookery. That is true. Thank you, guys. Let's see. I think I'm missing some more here. Odin, Corn Pop. Okay, we're all caught up. Thank you, guys. Oh, wait. I noticed it gave me Catherine Nixie's contact. Yeah, I should ask her. We'll see if she'll come on. Hopefully she'll won't do much research.
He didn't die? And do you think it's possible that they thought he was dead? Because that does happen. There was actually a case very recently where a guy was about to be harvested for organs. They thought he was dead, and this guy started moving again and came back to life.
Dude, this is not what happened, Rogan. This isn't, your theory ain't cutting it. It's a myth. They made up a fake fictional god like all the other gods that's ever existed.
It's a very, very bizarre case because his family had been told that he was going to be harvested for organs. They were preparing for that.
Yeah.
This guy comes back.
Yeah, I mean, we know a lot about Roman crucifixion. And we know
brutal.
that, and we know that they did their job well.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, if you look at, say, very skeptical biblical scholars, like non-believing, atheist, agnostic, Christian scholars, they will say if we can know anything about Jesus, like they'll cast a doubt on a lot of the things that we read about in the Gospels in terms of the actual historical Jesus of Nazareth.
But they'll say the crucifixion by the Romans is the only thing that's real. That's what they'll say.
One thing we can be sure of is that he died by crucifixion under Pontius Pilate. Because we have...
So all the top scholars say, all we know is the Romans did it. He was a rebel Jew that was killed by the Romans. That's the... historicist line.
Not just multiple attested documents that we refer to as the New Testament.
Multiple attested documents, again, a lie. The Gospels are not written by eyewitnesses, despite what they try to claim. They're based on Paul's letters and Hebrews and the pre-gospel Christian scriptures in text. Paul didn't even know Jesus. He's not an eyewitness attestation. Mark's the first gospel, not eyewitness, pure symbolic fiction. Matthew, not another independent source, independent attestation. It's copying from Mark. Luke, same thing, copying Mark and Matthew. But he gets up here and he gaslights and he bullshits that there's so much independent attestation. Bart Ehrman does the same thing. He says, Josephus and Tacitus, they're just... You can throw that out because that's after the Gospels.
Actual historical Jesus of Nazareth, they'll say one thing we can be sure of is that he died by crucifixion under Pontius Pilate. Because we have not just multiple attested documents that we refer to as the New Testament, but Roman and Greek and Jewish writers refer to that claim afterwards and talk about the fact that you have this guy and it's...
No, they don't say you have this guy. They don't say we confirm this guy was real. They said there's these Christians and they believe this. That's what they said. God, dude, to see all of this nonsense Christian propaganda in Jesus shilling on Joe Rogan should be a big wake-up call to everybody out there. This goes on Rogan, but no Richard Carrier, no Dr. Robert Price, no Fitzgerald, no Rafaela Taster. He's doesn't even have his PhD yet. There's a bunch of PhDs that have been writing books for decades about how Jesus didn't exist, but they don't get to go on Rogan.
And Jewish writers refer to that claim afterwards and talk about the fact that you have this guy, and it's mocked within earliest Christianity. So one of our earliest, in fact, not one of, the earliest depiction of Jesus on the cross is called the Alexamenos Graphido. And it's probably from the end of the 1st century. and it's it depicts an individual with their arms raised in an act of worship, worshiping a man with a donkey's head who's being crucified. And right beside it, it says, Alexamenos worships his God in Greek. Whoa. And it's mocking, right? Because crucifixion was for the lowest of the low. It was for like.
So it's supposed to be Jesus, but it's a donkey? I've never heard any other scholar bring that up. Adam, why won't I debate Jake Shields about Jesus? Have you not got that all of these top so-called anti-Zionist influencers are scared to criticize Jesus? They're scared to offend their Christian and Muslim audience. They don't have the information to refute any of this. They don't want to lose any support from Christians and Muslims that make up their audience. We've only been talking about this gatekeeping, Abrahamic gatekeeping circle jerk for years.
You were banned.
All right.
So how do you
So
fact check someone?
Gnostic Informants talks about this clip. Another lie he does. I don't know. So he gives, to break it down without watching the 5-minute clip.
Yeah, fix that. So you were talking about like what is our oldest manuscript evidence? So this guy is P52. John Ryland's 457. So that's a genuine Egyptian papyri that I made. I cut it out for you.
So he cut it out. He wrote the words on it. This is the oldest fragment of the New Testament that they have. And it's not even the size of a credit card. He tries to claim this is 1st century. It's actually late 2nd century. And as far as the oldest complete Bible, it's not for over 300 years after Jesus supposedly died. There's no originals. We don't have original of any piece of the New Testament.
And then I transcribed the text on that manuscript. So when we're talking about what is potentially our oldest evidence for the New Testament, this manuscript that most likely comes from Oxyrhynchus, Egypt, is the one that usually is universally accepted as our oldest one. And that contains John 18, where Jesus is on trial before Pilate. And yeah, so that's the one. It's in the John Rylands Library in Manchester, England.
So this is a copy of that exactly? This is exactly what it looks like?
Yeah, so I cut that out on the papyri with a scalpel, and then I transcribed the text on.
You did a great job, dude.
You
nerded out.
I know. I'm
for real nerded out. This is a real nerding out of.
Yeah.
So that's actually
the little piece of ripped paper that settles it.
Is the one I made.
It's not as good. Yours is better.
And where Jesus is on trial before Pilate, and Jesus says, everyone who follows the truth, who is bringing this up is because before this was discovered by C.H. Roberts in the 1940s, the convention was, because of a guy named Bauer, that the Gospel of John was 2nd century. And so he had this, he was a student of Hegel. Have you ever heard of Hegelian dialectic?
Hegelian dialectic. So he's talking about Bruno Bauer. I believe that's the Bauer he's talking about. He says that this copy of John, this little fragment of John the book of John was written early 2nd century, which is the normal dating.
Like a thesis, synthesis, and antithesis.
Yes.
So Hegel had this philosophical theory, and his student Bauer takes that and he incorporates this into history. And he says, the earliest gospel, Mark, has this very Jewish Jesus, and then the later Gospels have a very, the last of what are called the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Luke has a very kind of more divine Jesus, and so he says, based on this, John is the last written one, and it combines these two where you get a very human and a very divine Jesus together. And so based on this, he says that John has to be 2nd century. Well, we discover this guy. C.H. Roberts is, literally going through these piles of manuscripts in these drawers that
here's the lie,
stashed away, and he finds this guy, and he sees that it's written on both sides, which is almost exclusively a Christian convention.
Well, it's a Christian book.
In the world, they use scrolls, and the Christians, for reasons we're not entirely clear on, they start to make codices, books, and so they write on both sides. And so he says, okay, this is written on both sides. It's probably a Christian manuscript. So he sends it off to the leading paleographers.
Probably. What else would it be? A Jewish manuscript?
Or guys who date manuscripts. And they all say this is the beginning of the 2nd century. And so there's still debate about the dating of this, but
most scholars date this fragment to late 2nd century. He dates it to early 2nd century and then tries to push it back into 1st century.
Unanimous consensus is that it's comfortably 2nd century, potentially the beginning of the 2nd century, which means that this is found in Egypt.
So even early 2nd century is 70 years after Jesus supposedly died. 70 years. That's 2 lifetimes for life expectancy 2,000 years ago.
John is probably writing his gospel in Ephesus, so it has to be written by John, spread around, find its way to Egypt, be copied, and then end up in this manuscript, which means that at minimum, you've already pushed the Gospel of John back into the 1st century comfortably.
No!
Even most likely into the lifetime of the eyewitnesses of these events.
No!
And so all of the literature up until that.
No. If Jesus' disciples were 20 years old when he was supposedly crucified in 30 AD, in 100 AD, they would be, that's 70 years later. What's 70 plus 20? 90 years old? You think people, the chances of somebody 2,000 years ago living to 90 years old is like 1 in 1,000.
A point from the scholarly consensus about the dating of the Gospel of John gets totally rewritten.
No, it's not rewritten. Now let's see what Gnostic Informant says. He says, this is really hard to watch, not just the clip, but the entire thing. Wesley is clearly agenda-driven. He tells Joe what scholars think that it's 1st century. The only people who push this are weirdos like Habermas, so like big-time Jesus shill. He's using shills now, too. I love that. Jesus shills like Gary Habermas. Not once does Wes ever tell Joe that the scholarly consensus among textual critic scholars says the fragment dates to 175 CE, so 140 years after Jesus supposedly died. He dances around this by saying 2nd century. A century is 100 years, Wes. Be more specific. He also got the 400 witnesses wrong. Yeah, he should have just said 0. So he's just lying. So much dishonesty. And then look at all the top comments. What do you guys notice? These were some of the very top, most thumbed up comments in this Joe Rogan interview. Christ saved me from a life of drug addiction, porn addiction, sex addiction, and anger problems. Saved me from intense mental illness and internal torment for over 20 years. I was a miserable atheist for 20 years. I owe my life to Jesus. God bless Jesus Christ of Nazareth, Lord of Lords, King of Kings. Jesus found me at my lowest. I showed me I am worthy to be loved. Top YouTube comments are usually retarded. Jesus Christ took me from a homeless drug addict, literally dying from organ damage, and gave me a new life. I'm now a healthy business owner who hopes to go to seminary to become the Orthodox Christian. I'm sure all the historical evidence and logical arguments is what brought all these people to Christ, right? Is that not obvious? He's been sober for 7 years. Half of his life was he's going to seminary to become an Orthodox Christian priest. Christ is King is the screen name. Hopes to be getting married and starting family with an amazing woman I love. I know if Christ can give me new life, then he will do the same for you if you sincerely pray for him to come into your life. If you had told me this 10 years ago, I would have laughed in your face, but I'm so glad I have been humbled by God. He is the one thing I was always missing, but didn't know it then. Here's a dramatic story. Every time we do these spaces and ask for proof of Jesus, Christians call in and talk about their personal experience. This demon they saw, how they got off drugs, how it made their life better. Yeah, way to not give yourself any credit. Here's another dramatic story. Saved from suicide attempt. Cured in 3 seconds from porn addiction, depression, alcohol addiction when Jesus touched my heart via my back. Wow. I had many experiences after. Also got baptized, which was also a battle and experience. Jesus is truly amazing, and my knee bends for him. Jesus, the King of the Jews, the Jewish Messiah, my knee bends. The relief I felt when I came to believe that Jesus died for my sins was the best moment of my life. What kind of sins did you commit that you're so desperate to be forgiven for? Yeah, mindless NPCs, repeating mantras. It's always junkies, Jesus junkies. Disturbing, yeah. Jesus hit him from the back. Yeah, he got grafted in. Jesus grafted him in with his long Hebrew hair. The Jesus suicide hotline. Volkish Spirit knew a guy that got into legal trouble, went to jail, and then found Jesus. You know, interesting enough, Gnostic informant got into legal trouble, went to prison, and found Jesus in prison. So since Joe Rogan will platform Christian apologists and Passion of the Christ director, will he have on Dr. Richard Carrier to expose how Jesus is a myth? Why not? Why not? See Through It All nailed it too. The #1 podcaster in the world is talking about the resurrection of Jesus. The revival is coming. 14,000 likes.
Changes of the direction, the ideology that these people subscribe to, and the moral changes the course of human history. This thing changes the direction, the ideology that these people subscribe to, and the moral and ethical structure that they live their life by. It changes untold billions of human beings.
Cures billions of porn addictions in mere seconds.
From that point on.
Yeah.
Pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
That in itself, even if this is just a revelation without a divine interaction, that's a fucking miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle that it was created at all. Like the whole idea that Christianity, when you're saying that the book of, was it the book of Isaiah?
Yeah.
That the same book is exactly the same as, like, that's a miracle.
That's also not true. He got that terribly wrong also. He claims that the Masoretic text of Isaiah was word for word exactly what they found in the Isaiah scroll in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's not. There's thousands of textual differences. Different words, misspelled words, different grammar, and he claims word for word exactly the same, and Rogan's like, amazing, and it's not even true.
That's pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If you just imagine.
Yeah, Milo must be pissed, Rogan talking like this now, because he was like hard on Milo. Milo was defending Jesus, and Rogan was like, he was not about it. What changed? Oh, he's shilling for... He's part of MAGA now, so now he was not talking shit about Jesus anymore. Imagine that. Joe's jumped on the Jesus grift. Does he want to lose a quarter or a third of his audience? I doubt it.
The sheer number of illiterate people, the sheer number of days that have to go by where people are telling the story exactly the same, and that it's entrusted in the hands of these very few people that are so dedicated to it that they get the exact words right.
These
1,000
Jews.
years later.
These dedicated Jews.
Well, I mean, that is kind of the crazy thing about Christianity, where you have this Jewish itinerant guy who's walking around.
Jewish. Not Jewish. He's not Jewish.
First century Roman-occupied Judea. He's making some pretty audacious claims to be God himself, and then he predicts his own death and resurrection. And then his disciples are...
Easy to predict your death and resurrection when you're writing a mythical story. It's like Superman. He could leap tall buildings in a single bound, faster than a locomotive. He shoots laser beams from his eyes. He flies around. He's the man of steel, stronger than steel. It's amazing. It's like, and then biblical scholars will be like, if we just remove all the obviously fictional and miraculous, unbelievable aspects of the Jesus story, there's no Clark Kent. You remove Jesus and all the miracles, there's no Clark Kent, some historical, real Clark Kent at the core.
They think it's over. Like, they're like, he's dead. We're done.
Yeah.
And then they go from 11, scared men, because Judas commit suicide. It scared men in an
Yeah, because these disciples who saw Jesus do countless miracles and who predicted and told them that he was going to die according to the prophecy and then rise from the dead, and then he died and they didn't believe him. Anybody believe that? Does that sound at all realistic? That if Jesus were real, you believe the story, an internal critique, that the disciples were so stubborn and skeptical, they witnessed Jesus do countless miracles, predict his death exactly like it would happen, but then they didn't believe that he would resurrect. And then when he did resurrect, Thomas is supposedly so skeptical that he has to poke him in his wound to believe it. This is all absolute nonsense.
Upper room to completely overhauling the Roman world in only a couple hundred years.
Completely overhauling the Roman world, completely theologically conquering the Roman world, and most importantly, conquering the gods of the Roman world, which was the whole purpose of Judaism and the Messiah to begin with. Imagine that.
Because of this claim that they say they saw Jesus resurrected. Like there's something different that goes on there, that they're like, this is a miracle, right? Dead people don't usually rise from the dead.
So what?
Except they saw Jesus raise Lazarus from the dead and heal the blind, but then they were skeptical when Jesus resurrected. None of this makes any sense. Only makes sense as symbolic, allegorical fiction. Friendly Neighborhood Fascist says, if you caught the latest EMJ cringe, yes, I have. I'll hopefully maybe do a video on that, although everybody already knows he's cooked. You have Jones using Jewish arguments to debunk race, bickering about who worships dead Jews in the best way, all attacking the other denominations. The comments filled with Christian identity tards and true Israelites, they're making it easy for you. There's going to be a whole lot of I told you so and a whole lot of vindication in the coming years, I have a feeling. Darmy for 18, that's a new name. Thank you, Darmy. Says the Jews in your recent space stream said quote unquote idol worship is objectionable because it associated with bestiality and other degeneracy. Yet modern paganism and the Dharmic religions have none of that. On the contrary, it is the Jews who are currently pushing porno and all kinds of extreme degeneracy. They say it's pagans. The Christians will say, oh, the pagans, the evil pagan degeneracy. Yeah. EMJ is kind of old news. It's like how many times we're going to beat that old horse. But I think I did play a clip the other day, but maybe I'll do more. Some of the best clips from the debate he had with another Christian, I haven't even seen people clip yet. They look too bad that none of the Christians that watched it have clipped it.
What is your personal belief when it comes to the resurrection? What do you think happened? Do you have a belief, or do you just try to interpret the text and try to see what is the message?
Well, I think so. As a historian, I do think it is a historical question.
You're not a historian, bud. You're a lifelong Christian and Christian apologist. Don't try to LARP as a historian like you care about history. You care about defending the faith.
A guy who objectively lived,
No, not objectively lived. Just because Bart Ehrman and Dominic Crossan say it doesn't mean it's objective. He subjectively lived.
Objectively died, and then individuals close to his inner circle claim that they see him not dead.
Right.
Again.
This is highly unusual.
Jews would never lie about that. They would never make up a story like that, would they?
Activity.
Highly unusual.
Right. So, but it's hard when you're dealing with illiterate populations, you're dealing with thousands of years of time, you're dealing with an oral tradition, and then you have us sitting here talking about it in 2024, trying to figure it at the end of 2024, trying to figure this out. Literally the end.
Yeah.
Last couple of days. It's very difficult for anybody who thinks of themselves as an intelligent person who's secular to even entertain the possibility that someone died and come back to life.
And I get that. But we've already talked about the fact that we don't think that the only thing that exists is matter and motion. We as in you and I, right? Like, we believe that there's something else going on in this world that's a little bit crazy.
There's something else.
Something's up. Something's up. So yeah, Jesus, it's pretty unbelievable to think Jesus could raise from the dead. The Son of God would send himself to sacrifice himself and then raise himself to save all of you the way he made you. But, something's going on, so it's possible. Like, come on, this is so pathetic.
And that, to, I think, exclude that, excludes something that you're kind of putting blinders on.
Blinders? You don't believe in magical Jews? You got blinders on. Sounds very scientific. Something else is out there, so anything's possible. Any of these Jewish fairy tales could be true, because, like, black holes and big bangs, man. Trust the plan. Go back to sleep. It's so bad.
Yeah. 4. And you do have, you're right in terms of all of these ancient conventions and the ways that things were spread around. But the Gospels are written in the lifetime of the eyewitnesses. And they're written in this period of time where
written in the lifetime of the eyewitnesses. It's 40 years after, so an apostle that's 20, a hypothetical disciple that's 20, 40 years later when Mark was written, they could be alive. But is there any evidence that Mark is written by an eyewitness? Does he claim that he interviewed an eyewitness? In fact, Mark has an omniscient narrator where there's all these instances where there were no eyewitnesses there. Like during Jesus' trial with the high priest. There's no disciple there to tell you exactly what was said. When Jesus was being tempted by Satan in the desert. Another fake story, obviously, rewriting the Exodus 40 years in the desert. No disciple there to say, I witnessed this and it said this. To sit up here and act like this is a good argument and this is good evidence is poppycock, is rubbish.
Ways that things were spread around. But the Gospels are written in the lifetime of the eyewitnesses. And they're written in this period of time where you have groups of individuals who could have fact-checked those things. So
how do you fact-check someone coming back from the dead?
Yeah.
Well, how many people saw his body, right?
Well, Paul says that 400 people saw him all at once.
Oh, I guess it's settled then. Paul said that 500 people saw it. Did they interview those 500 people? Well, no. Did any of those 500 people write a book and say it? No. Did anybody outside of the Bible see Jesus? There's no contemporary documentation of Jesus. Not until Josephus, which is a forgery, and Tacitus, which is in 90 and 110s. We're talking 60 to 80 years later, after the Gospels were in circulation and Christianity was spreading. Yeah, is there any evidence for Jesus?
I read about it in a book. What an idiot. Idiot. Oh, what a loser.
Not a loser, though. Exploding, being astroturfed if I've ever seen. I Can Decide says your God is a magical Jew. Good for you, man. Thy Lord will not be mocked. You do not appreciate my tone to the Father. Is that right? You think I care?
Forget about it.
I don't. Jamie, can you please book Dr. Richard Carrier or Dr. Robert Price to talk about Jesus being a myth, please? And thank you, Jamie. Come on, let's have some balance here. Give somebody the other side of the story, not just this goyslop Christian apologetics. Pope Rogan. Right. You know what? Where is my thread? Here it is. Here's the thread. He says he's been listening to Joe Rogan Experience for over a decade. Here, actually, I want to, before we go to that, this is Derek did a video about Christian apologetics, and I thought it was good. Eric the Red, he's one of my friends here and is doing great clips. Everybody should follow him if you're not already. He clipped up and made a little thing of Derek talking about how these Christian apologists have no choice but to lie because they're defending a lie.
But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to say it. Apology.
And he was a hardcore Christian for years too. Derek from Myth Vision. Doing a great job exposing the mythological origins of Judaism and Christianity.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to say it. Apologetics is just dishonest. There's no other way I can put it. I mean, clearly you're going to find decent, good people that are in that avenue.
Think about what are the responses that I hear for my years of videos, years of clips, years of arguments and debates. What's the most common retort I hear? They lie and say you're Jewish. Pathological, lying Christians, anonymous, spreading all types of bullshit slander. That's their main response. They're pathological liars.
I would have considered myself that, even though I struggled. And of course, I had things I had to outgrow and learn and cut off from my own life as I learned more about where I'm at and what I think about the world. But the more I engage and see apologetics in action, the less I really want anything to do with that and to just focus on critical scholarship, research, comparative mythology, because everything I do with this channel, I do to try and help people see a bigger picture, to educate for that bigger picture so that people can actually find peace and know that, hey, actually, this is another one of these.
Another lie.
Why is this one special and all of these aren't? Really, if you're going to play the Christianity's unique card, they're all unique, but they're all human. And that is my goal in many cases, to show you so that the chains, the shackles on one's mind and what you think and
the chains of Yahweh. Liberate yourself from the chains of Yahweh's mental enslavement, the Judeo-prophecy Messiah virus. I'm liking the language here. The lingo's picking up.
Play the Christianity's unique card. They're all unique, but they're all human. And that is my goal in many cases, to show you so that the chains, the shackles on one's mind and what you think and the freedom you can experience from that can be there. That doesn't mean I want everyone to be an atheist like me. You must think like me in every aspect, but getting away from apologetics, fundamentalism, super conservative forms of Christianity that I think are toxic and dishonest to the core.
That's super fundamentalist Christian. He means hardcore Christian Zionists.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now in 2025 at the beginning of this year. Think are toxic and dishonest to the core.
Toxic. Christian lying apologists are toxic. Just wait till you see the rabbis, Derek. Which I think he has seen some of the rabbi compilations. Maybe starting to figure it out. Yeah, I know. How about a show about Judaism's end times or rabbi supremacy? Well, you know what? That'd be the end of his channel. And I think everybody on YouTube knows that. Yeah, his shirt says daddy. I don't know what that's about. Okay. Christians are agents of the Torah Messianic prophecy conspiracy.
Florida became the first.
Look, the lost Jews of the Inquisition. Who is this girl? Religious right-wing activist Moore is already planning on using the Trump administration to impose Christian nationalist education standards on the nation's public schools. She says, quote, the Republic actually came out of the Torah. Great, another Torah shill.
State in the country to teach the role the Hebrew Bible played in our founding, the role that it played in the formation of our form of government. The Republic actually comes out of the Torah.
Come on. The Republic, a Greek democratic idea, comes out of the Torah. See what I'm saying about these Christians? They're just either ignorant, regurgitating disinfo, or they're deliberate liars.
We're trying to get President Trump to initiate those same procedures, call for an emergency review of civics and social studies standards across the United States.
They're like, we need the Torah and the 7 Noahide laws in our schools immediately. All right, so here's the thread on Joe Rogan's history of talking about Christianity. Oh man, we're just gonna go the last 15 minutes. Oh my God, there's so many. We're gonna play a few. I'm gonna have to go refill my water, I think.
I think religion serves as...
This is very early on. You could see his old studio. He's become softer and softer on Christianity. As he become more popular and made more money, he's gone softer on Christianity. What does that tell you?
You know, it's like, I think religion serves as an operating system for a lot of people. And if they didn't have religion, you'd have to explain shit to them. And that could get so tiresome. It would get so tiresome to sit around with some blundering moron, you know, pontificating on what it means to have a finite life in an infinite universe, and what part of, you know, this part of this experience you really do play. What part do you play, and what is your consciousness all about, and why are you so scared of it shutting off? You know, those are scary, terrifying questions for the average person. And, you know, maybe like, you know, maybe some ditch digger dude doesn't need to know that. Maybe there's some dudes who have some... I believe there's people that have brains that work way better than mine. I've seen it. I've talked to people that it's not just a matter of education. It's a matter of some people are gifted. You know, there's some people who have little tiny hands, and then there's people that are built like Shaquille O'Neal, and he could grab them and crush them. And it's not fair. It doesn't make any sense, but it's just the way it is. And I think that there's some people that they're living in this life as humans, but yet they're not quite human. They're like just below human. Like you talk to them.
Is he talking about Christians? He's describing Christians? They're not really human? No, they're spiritual Jews. And they're sheep. Yeah. Hey, how dare that Talmud Jews call us cattle? They call the Goyim cattle, but then the Christians are like, oh, we're sheep. We're a flock of sheep following our Jewish shepherd, Rabbi Yeshua HaMashiach.
And you're like, so what do you think happens when you die? Well, man, for sure you go to heaven and you get to be with Jesus. Yeah. Well, I've believed this since I was a child. Yeah. And you're talking to him, and you know there's like a weird disconnect with a person. Like they talk. And it's not even that they're not. It's like this. I've met some really intelligent Christians. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's certain people that are just really dumb, and they really aren't capable of thinking about deep shit. They're not capable of pondering the really insane question of what the fuck this life is.
They're not able to figure out Jewish tricks like Jesus.
They're not capable of it. So religion, I've always felt, is like a nice scaffolding for people like that.
Scaffolding, yeah. That's Plato's noble lie, that the dumbed down masses need a founding mythology to behave and be a part of society and keep their life in order.
But as it improves and expands, we are... I know evolution is the wrong word for there, but as it improves and expands, we are no longer accepting the idea of Satan. Like culturally, Satan was an accepted thing hundreds of years ago. It was parallel. Like if you looked at the mentions of Satan and the mentions of God, they were right up there together. You're blaming Satan on the bad things and you're praising God for the good things. That's no longer the case. Now we just cling to these absurd notions of this one that's watching us all the time, and you gotta sort of peripherally mention it and casually reference it without going into detail, and you're allowed to do that because it makes people think, well, you're on the same page as me. You're a God-fearing Christian man like myself. I'm a God-fearing Christian man myself as well. God bless you. God bless you as well. You know, but if you go, Satan is looking out for you. Satan is watching you right now. Satan is just letting the air out of your tires. Like, you go, well, that guy's a fucking idiot. You know, like, we've moved past Satan.
Yeah. You mean like your buddy Alex Jones? That's what he does all the time. Jones fear-mongering about Satan, all of this Jewish boogeyman. All Satan does is scare people into worshiping the Jewish God.
We haven't moved past God.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Or the idea of God. Even if there is some all-knowing entity that is controlling everything and is filled with love and has a grand plan for the universe, they have yet to show themselves. So this is all just a concept and an idea with no basis in fact. And as we have found more facts about the nature of reality and the world itself, it seems more and more preposterous with every day. Every day that scientists come up with these new equations that show the way the universe could have possibly been formed, and every day that these fucking guys at the CERN laboratory, the Large Hadron Collider, are discovering.
All right, we're going to skip that one. Dismisses Christianity as evidence-based. This one's shorter.
I mean, because Christianity, at the end of the day, with no proof, everything is mythology. Everything. With no proof. With proof, then you examine the proof. It's super simple. And anybody that argues against that is you're just biased. You have your own ideas. If you have some proof that there was a God, that this God had one son, and he made this son come down and get the fuck beat out of him and nailed to a board so that we could all have no sin. Can you show me some studies? Do you have a box of evidence that you can pull out and we can examine all the different pieces?
No.
Points to the undeniable conclusion that that's true?
The Shroud of Turin. Paul said 500 saw him. Like, what other proof do you need?
Because if you don't, then it's a myth. Then you're believing mythology.
Dude, see what I'm saying? This is like how Rogan's traditionally been. Only recently, I said it. I did a show. Alex Jones was like, Joe Rogan's coming to Jesus. Joe Rogan's a part of the MAGA Trump grift operation now, so he's shilling Jesus now, basically is what that sounded like to me. The Jews said so, Joe. That's your proof, yeah. It's anti-Semitic to not believe in Jesus. So see what I'm saying? Like, it would be cool to sit down with Joe, smoke a bunch of joints, and expose the Jesus lie. You think he'd be all for it? Why has it not happened?
Deniable conclusion that that's true? Because if you don't, then it's a myth. Then you're believing mythology. Doesn't mean it's not real, but if you put all your fucking eggs in that basket and you don't have any proof at all, well, you're entering into this weird world where you don't pay attention to shit.
Yeah, your cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias, and you become an apologetic liar. Exactly. See, Rogan knows. He knows. Why is he having on these Christian apologists to let him shill their Jesus bullshit? Okay, have them on, but at least have on the other side. That's all I'm saying. In fact, I like that they're talking about this as long as they give the other side a voice as well and a platform. Yeah, rebellious goy. Tucker didn't really have demons gnawing at him while he slept. You're right.
You're entering into this weird world where you ignore certain aspects of things because you've decided what is and what isn't. That's not thinking. That's not thinking. That's like
I'd be just like Elon. I'd go on there and puff it up with I'd box that whole little.
Because if you're thinking, you can't accept it. If you're thinking, you go, wait, what? He came back from the dead?
I'd try to get Joe as high as possible and really green bill him on the Jesus lie.
Came back from the dead. I don't think you can do that.
God, where was that Joe Rogan? This is when he fought with Milo.
If you say you're Christian and you want to be on that team, you got to kind of say it.
You can aspire to be better than you are.
Aspire to be better than you are doesn't mean you believe in Jewish zombies.
We're not going to win this one.
Jewish zombies! Jewish zombie named. You believe a Jew... Did he say Jewish zombie?
Believe in Jewish zombies.
Yes. Come on.
I'm not going to win this one.
Well, of course you're not. This one's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's ridiculous to believe in Jewish zombies. Somebody clip that. Jamie, can we clip that? Hey, Rogan, when's the guest to expose the Jewish zombie lies? How about that? I think the Joe Rogan experience next to experience some zombie Jesus debunking.
It's ridiculous. You're talking about shit written on animal skins by people who thought the world was flat and the sun was 17 miles away. And you're like, oh yeah, that's going to make you a better person. It's totally, yeah, they found it in clay pots in Qumran. Yeah, they unscrolled, they had to do DNA tests to find out which piece of fucking yak ass this piece was written on.
I feel sorry for people who have a sort of bleak, empty existence of militant
that's
atheism.
Not bleak or empty.
It's just so boring.
Yeah, not falling for Jewish lies means you're bleak and empty. Come on, Milo. Jewish zombies for the win. Yeah, I'll be like Elon in there blazing up. Oh, don't mind if I do, Joe. Let me tell you about Edom. Let me tell you about the Kelly Pots. Let me explain to you why the Jews invented Jesus, Joe. That's actually, Jamie, can you pull up my compilation of Mizrachi saying how much he loves the millions of goy bowing down to a Jew tonight? Jamie, pull up the See Through It All clip, please. Could you imagine how cool that would be?
Belief in nonsense is not
Terrible
bleak.
way to look at the world.
A lack of belief in nonsense is not bleak. What other ridiculous shit do I believe?
Jewish zombie nonsense. God, Joe is so awesome in this one.
That's akin to Jewish zombies or guys who turn
God's sakes,
wine and
stop it.
out of water.
Nothing, you know what? There's
Yes,
nothing
Joe's the man.
than seeing somebody who you admire, who's obviously smart and clever,
Who won't
and
buy
interesting.
into old fairy tales.
Yeah, Jewish zombie bullshit fairy tales. Preach, Joe. God, where was this Joe Rogan last week?
To speak so disparagingly about such a complex and fascinating part of who we are.
You're
now,
right.
Look at
yeah, totally.
even if you,
Dude, why is Rogan's never pushed back on a guest more than Milo, basically, in this one? Milo triggered Joe Rogan's most epic zombie Jesus bullshit fairy tale rant of all time.
Take the view, let's say Ludwig Feuerbach, right? Even if you take the Feuerbachian view, and say, I don't believe in what any of these religions say.
Okay.
But if we look at what they have in common and what that says about the human spirit, what we aspire to, what we consider most important. So, for example, Christianity, we might consider self-sacrifice and love the most important things, because self-sacrifice and love are the two central instincts that run, the red threads that run through the Christian canon, run through Christian literature, run through Christian history.
If that was the most important thing,
is this. Okay, I don't believe in this stuff, but this is an essential human artifact of human culture and history, because it teaches us more about ourselves than anything else.
Right.
It teaches us over centuries it has evolved to teach us what we find most important. And different religions in different places are fascinating because they illustrate the different emphases on those core values of love and charity and self-sacrifice that different societies place on things. They say something deep and profound about who we are and about what we care about most, about our anxieties, about our beliefs, and about our our sympathies, the way we relate to one another, the way that
that's adorable. Just because you say this doesn't mean it's true.
The way that we ought to organize.
This doesn't rationalize ridiculous stories.
Dude, where was this with Wes Huff and Mel Gibson? Come on, Joe. We want the old Joe back. We want the zombie Jesus destroying Rogan back.
One reason why you should be less flippant and dismissive about religion, because you are too smart to be that much of a cunt about religion.
No, I'm flippant and dismissive about it because I can't believe it's still here.
You are far too smart. You are far too intelligent and individual to treat religion with the amount of contempt you do. This is what assholes do. This is
not what assholes
mediocre intelligence,
is
militant
exactly what you accuse feminists of doing.
No, it's not.
You're distorting the argument. The reality is we're talking about myths, and we're talking about people that believe those myths so much that they won't let people get married because it goes against their myth.
I'm saying,
dude, so that's the old Rogan, and now we got the new Rogan. This was last week they did this interview. Just 2 hours ago, they're still retweeting from the Joe Rogan official Twitter account. This Christian apologist shares the gospel on Joe Rogan. Like, talk about a heel turn, an about face. Something's going on.
You can disagree with them.
Isn't that what happened?
You can disagree with. But
that's what happened, right? Where's the love and compassion from Kim Davis?
You can disagree with everything that they teach. You can say that it's nonsense. You can agree that you can, if you want to agree that it has bad consequences in society. That it's
it can have bad consequences.
What you shouldn't do is ridicule and dismiss, sort of the Jewish zombie shit, right? You're just doing it to be outrageous. You're just doing it to provoke.
No, that's what
and
it
what
is.
You shouldn't do. And look,
I'm not doing it to be outrageous.
There's a good place for outrageousness.
Milo follows me on Twitter, and I'll comment Jesus stuff to him sometimes in replies, and he'll go, "Adam, stop it, Adam, stop it." He doesn't want to debate Jesus. He'll have a flashback from his Rogan interview. And this Rogan interview is where he talked about how his Catholic priest molested him and basically turned him gay. And then he got canceled for that. He got abused by his priest, spoke out about it, and then he got canceled for it. It's amazing,
right? And I'm not trying to put you on trial here. What I'm saying is you're too smart to fall into this habit, and it's a leftist thing, this militant atheism crap, where you dismiss the central importance of religion.
Corn Pop says, let's flood Rogan's latest post with a link to this video. Good call. Let's do that.
To our culture
And what
to
is
who
the
we
central
are.
importance?
Well,
it got us through barbaric days with rules where we worried about the consequences of God's punishing us.
Most of our laws are based on religious prescription when you get down to it. You know,
but that
most
doesn't
of the way
mean that they're good, and that's the only reason why they
organized is
exist.
based on what's ultimately religious prescription. My point is simply and only that if you're going to be a flippant asshole, at least acknowledge that, first of all, half the population, you know, does take this stuff seriously, and second of all, this is important stuff that tells us about who we are. And
link is in the chat.
You to be so flippant about it.
Everybody share the Rumble link.
Feminism is not important stuff that tells us about
but don't be mean.
Flippant and cruel and vindictive and spiteful and horrible about crazy feminists because they're crazy and because what they do is ridiculous. I don't think, whether or not you're an atheist, that religion is ridiculous. And I think it deserves a bit more respect.
Well, that's fine. You're allowed to think it, but just because you think it doesn't mean it's right.
No,
and the
fine.
idea that it makes you a flippant asshole because you're unwilling to accept myths.
Calling Jesus a zombie Jewish myth is not mean you're a flippant asshole. It means you're not falling for Jewish tricks. You're not falling for obvious falsehoods.
You're unwilling to accept things that make no sense whatsoever. You're unwilling to accept things that are scientifically disproven.
You're not acknowledging the extent to which religion has made you who you are. I mean, you know, from the speech
you mean
codes,
the rejection
from
of
the
it, maybe?
speech codes that you grow up with, your moral codes. You know,
come
the
on,
whole
stop.
basis.
That doesn't mean the myths aren't stupid.
No, I didn't say that.
It doesn't mean the myths aren't stupid.
Atheist.
No, you know what got us to here. You know what got us to here? People, not religion.
Your sense of right and wrong.
Religion, which was created by people.
Your sense of right
people
and wrong
did
comes
bullshit.
From a
lies,
Judeo-Christian tradition.
Bullshit.
And it's interesting.
The sense of right and wrong does not come from that. That's not true.
Very angry.
It's not true.
Dude.
Your sense of right and wrong comes from Judeo-Christian.
It's like night and day. Like Milo, everything Milo just said there is far more reasonable than the bullshit that we heard from Wes Huff and Mel Gibson. Where was this energy with those guys?
Stop saying that because it's not true.
I've got to stop saying
it's cultural.
It's
cultural.
So I see.
There's right and wrong in other cultures that's completely different from what we consider right and wrong in America.
Wow. Discussing with Richard Dawkins, he says,
if you say you're
hold on,
who practices a religion is an atheist. One of the things that I really enjoyed about your book was when you explained to people that everyone who practices a religion is an atheist. You're just an atheist in regards to Zeus or Apollo.
Or the 999 other gods.
Yes.
Yeah, you're just an atheist for every god but the Jewish god.
That's a home run with this argument.
Yes.
Because
some of us just go one god further.
Yes. Yeah. But that really is a
Someone got a call?
This is this concept of, you know,
Rogan got the call. Hey, no more trashing Jesus. We need him. We like the goy believing in our Messiah. Jamie, pull up the blackmail they have
Me
on
and my
me.
friends
That's funny.
jokingly would always say,
it's funny, huh? Rogan used to criticize zombie Jesus and Jewish fairy tales as nonsense and silly. He gets the huge contract from Spotify. He's in bed with Donald Trump and the MAGA grifters. And now all of a sudden, he's Mr. Maybe we need Jesus. I guess he owes Milo a big apology then.
say praise Odin when anything would happen that was pretty good or cool.
Yes.
Praise Odin.
And I started doing it online, and people really got into saying praise Odin.
Oh my God. Rogan had a Hail Odin arc? God, based beyond belief. Are you kidding me?
Entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
To the real world.
Dude, not only is he calling zombie Jesus a bullshit fairy tale, he was saying Hail Odin, praise Odin, beyond based. Rogan. God, I feel like me and Rogan could be BFFs. Could you imagine how much everything I say about Jesus, how much it would resonate with him? Oh, it would be so high.
People really got into saying praise Odin about certain things.
I rather like that, yeah.
Some people got mad at me. They actually got mad.
Some people, you mean rabbis and Christians and Muslims? That's idol worship. You must worship Jewish God only.
you're mocking Christianity by saying praise.
But of course
Odin.
you are. Why not?
That's the point.
Even really, I was just having fun.
Yes.
I was having fun because Odin seemed like a cool god. You know,
Yes.
it's an old school god,
Based Viking Rogan.
the god of the Vikings.
Yes.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about your
Fuck the zombie Jesus. It's about the Viking gods. Rogan gets it. He's basically green pilled.
book was when you explain to people that everyone who practices a religion is an atheist. You're just an atheist in regards to Zeus or Apollo.
Is it repeating? Oh, I just remembered now. I have a clip of Rogan where he says, he talks about the Christian Zionists that want to blow up the world. That's what it is. Maybe it's in one of these.
Time rolls on, people are going to understand the need to have.
So I think this is more modern. I'm going to look for that
But
clip.
I think as time rolls on, people are going to understand the need to have some sort of divine structure to things, some sort of belief in the sanctity of love and of truth. And a lot of that comes from religion. A lot of people's moral compass and the guidelines that they've used to follow to live a just and righteous life has come from religion. And unfortunately, a lot of very intelligent people, they dismiss all of the positive aspects of religion because they think that the stories are mere superstitious fairy tales, that they have no place in this modern world, and we're inherently good and your ethics are based on your own moral compass and we all have one. And that's not necessarily true. We need Jesus. I think, for real. Like, if he came back now, it'd be great. Like, Jesus, if you're thinking about coming back
right now,
now's a good time.
Yeah, pretty soon. Yeah,
now's a good time.
See, so it used to be zombie Jesus is nonsense. Now he's saying now that his tune has changed. And I just realized in February 2022, so 3 years ago, I did a video called Crazy Christians Rogan. I wonder, it's with Al. We did it 4 years ago. Let's see here. Do I have a clip of Rogan or something in this? Oh, that Crazy Christian.
Fucking social.
What's funny is I think this was compiled by like a Republican.
We did trans people listening. Hasn't essentially talking about is Israel just existing. Certain percentage of the
Barry Weiss propaganda relationship. Oh, I talked about Ari Emanuel and Dana White. Believe in what DMT is to start believe. Where is
devil? And you can't stand against truth, and you've chosen the wrong side, and you're going to be destroyed. No matter what happens to me, Joe, you're done. It's like Captain Ahab and the whale. Moby Dick.
All right, Moby Dick. Now here we go with Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, fellow intellectual dark web, Netanyahu crony,
and then
constantly shilling the Bible and Jesus. Can't even give a straight answer if you ask him, did Jesus raise from the dead? Oh, well, what do you mean by God? What do you mean by believe? Kermit the Frog, more benzos, clean your room.
So now then you think, well, let's think about the relationship between words. Well, some words are dependent on other words. Some ideas are dependent on other ideas. The more ideas are dependent on a given idea, the more fundamental that idea is. That's a definition of fundamental. So now imagine you have an aggregation of texts in a civilization. You say, which are the fundamental texts? I gotta run, guys. And the answer is the texts upon which most other texts depend. And so you'd put Shakespeare way in there in English because so many texts are dependent on Shakespeare's literary revelations. And Milton would be in that category, and Dante would be in that category, at least in translation. Fundamental authors, part of the Western canon, not because of the arbitrary dictates of power.
Joe Rogan, that's right. I had a whole video. Joe Rogan exposes circumcision. He rails against circumcision also, which is obviously Jewish.
But because those texts influenced more other texts. And then you think about that as a hierarchy, okay, with the Bible at its base, which is certainly the case. Now imagine that's the entire corpus of linguistic production, all things considered. Now, how do you understand that? Like, literally, how do you understand that? The answer is you sample it by reading and listening to stories and listening to people talk. You sample that whole domain. You build a low-resolution representation of that in different. It can't.
Rogan doesn't even talk in that clip. Peterson names Rogan amongst recent converts.
Christian.
Look at what I'm saying.
Why do you think it is
the Christian revival?
Like more bigger name folks are becoming Christian to some degree or another, like Candace Owens and who's that? Rod Schneider, Your Bride.
Yeah, Ian Hersey Ali, Neil Ferguson, Russell Brand, Joe Rogan, Douglas Murray.
Rogan. What are you doing with Joe Rogan?
Yeah, well, Joe's already he's got a foot in the camp.
He's a lot less disparaging of Christianity than he once was.
Absolutely,
which we really appreciate.
Joe figured it out.
Joe figured it out. Joe figured out who butters his bread. He figured out. Oh my God, he figured it out all right. Oh, I wish we could play this one too. There's so many more. I'm sorry, I gotta go. Oh, the Kid Rock one is here too. God, I wish I had a little bit more time, but I gotta go, guys. I gotta watch the baby. Wife's gotta leave. I love you all so much. Great stream. I gotta look at how many more tabs we have, by the way. Not even halfway through the tabs. I'll be back tomorrow covering the rest of this. Stay tuned. Tomorrow I'll be here. And can't wait to see what you have to say in the comments. Thanks for all the big donos. Big shout out John Garatis, my Odyssey account, Corn Pop the Bad Dude, Odin. Keep on exposing the trap for what they call cattle who need drugs when one is a Bible junkie. They possess all the same behaviors with extra kookery. Thanks everybody that donated. You're awesome. Dominic Buscemi says, cheers to the Jewish zombies. Hey. See you guys next time. Hopefully we'll see somebody on Rogan exposing Jesus one day. We can keep dreaming. Take care. Where's my outro video?
This is how an angel does.